All right, if you're anything like me, you hate running out of food on a trip. It's like a big fear, and so I'm a big fan of snacks during an adventure. And one of my absolute favorite go-to snacks are wonderful pistachios. You may be familiar with pistachios and the brand Wonderful Pistachios, but if you're not, they are one of the highest protein nuts out there. 1 ounce serving of Wonderful Pistachios is 6 grams of protein. That's 10% of your daily value. It also includes 9 essential amino acids, and they come with a ton of different flavors, varieties. There's a spicy version, there's lightly salted, there's no salted, there's so many, and every time I go on an adventure, I'm not even lying, I take an entire bag with me. And what's cool too, I love having the Wonderful Pistachio in shell, because then that almost gives me something to do and focus on as I'm paddling or biking through the really monotonous parts of the adventure. Every great adventure is going to have plenty of boring moments, and it's nice to have something to do and also something that is giving you some fuel, like Wonderful Pistachios. So they're one of my favorite adventure snacks, favorite road trip snacks, and definitely leave me feeling better than a lot of other snacks you can turn to. So if you want to learn more about how to fuel your next adventure with Wonderful Pistachios, go to wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I just want to apologize getting the show up a little late this week. It was a crazy weekend, and I usually do this on the weekend, and things have just been wild, which is kind of been the theme the last couple months, but I'm going to be getting back on track here soon. I'm catching up with work and life, and but the good news is these Monday episodes, or supposed to be Monday episodes, these new episodes are worth the wait, because today we're talking to quite a well-known figure in the outdoor industry, Paddy O'Connell. You might recognize Paddy's voice from a couple podcasts he used to host in the outdoor industry. He's also hosted the Outside podcast. He's one of the voices there, and he's hosted a number of different shows and film festivals, and he's kind of a well-known person because he's got such a unique personality. He's one of the few funny people in the outdoors. He's hilarious. I don't know if there's a niche for outdoor comedy, but Paddy could definitely fill that. But we're talking today about his newest project called PaddyO Sucks At. And what it's about, it's on Outside Watch, which is the streaming platform for Outside Magazine. And it's about Paddy trying new sports that he's never tried: fly fishing, climbing, burro racing, which is running with donkeys. And what's so cool about it is, that's one of the things you got to overcome when you're trying a new adventure is, the fear of looking ridiculous or looking, like you don't know what you're doing, because you don't. We often think that, people just are, experts at what they do and have always been, but I talk to so many people who are iconic and well known for a certain adventure sport, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I only started doing this a few years ago." And just a few years ago, this person went from looking, trying this thing for the first time, whether that's skiing or mountain biking or whatever it is, and now they're, really well known. So I think it's a misconception, and Paddy's trying to help break that by showing you what it looks like to try things for the first time. Because if you don't try them, you're never going to know those joys and those levels of love for something that so many people, millions of people, appreciate for different adventure sports we talk about. So be willing to go out there, look foolish, laugh at yourself, and find people who are accepting to newcomers. That's another really important piece. So if you are an expert or you are someone that's really good at something, make sure you have an inviting demeanor. Make sure you have the willingness to show people the extreme basics, because sometimes that fear of just the very basics is enough to keep people from trying something new. But once they realize, okay, all right, sweet, it is a matter of just figuring this out, that momentum of problem solving can carry them into a level, into the sport that you're currently at. So please don't neglect inviting people if you are an avid adventurer or someone who has that capability. Water sports, backpacking, mountain biking, surfing, whatever that is, show people how to do it, allow people to borrow your stuff if you can, have a fleet of used gear to let people borrow. That's another really important piece. So many sports can feel so exclusive because there's this coolness factor or this factor of, this is ours and no one else's. That's not the right attitude to have. And so Paddy's coming at it from a newcomer's perspective, but with each person he interviews and does an episode of PaddyO Sucks At with, they are really inviting in their sport. So whatever side of the coin you're on, make sure you're doing it in the most inviting way, the funnest way, and laughing your way through it. All right, let's dive in. All right, Paddy O'Connell, welcome to Adventure Sports Podcast.
Amazing. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Some beautiful dark wood in your background on a bookshelf. And where are you coming from?
I live in the Roaring Fork Valley in Colorado, just down the street from a little place called Aspen. So I live just outside of Carbondale, Colorado, and I am coming to you live from what formerly was my laundry room, but my wife and I, with the help of my in-laws, converted this into a recording studio and office. So I am sitting where my washing machine used to be.
Oh, no kidding. So you don't do laundry anymore?
Yeah. No, we do. We just do it out in the garage.
Okay.
Or I just get sprayed, like with a garden hose and washed, like with a push broom, like a circus elephant in my front yard. Neighbors can't stand it, but it gets the nooks and crannies.
Well, you got it. What if it works? If it works, hard time of year to do that, but you're upgrading from the typical podcaster I talk to who's in their closet for 5 years, or laundry rooms are first. I'm actually in my living room. I do go to a studio usually, but my dog's injured, so I'm at home with her just to keep an eye on her. But so I know you didn't start there, and I always want to ask, what was kind of your adventure background? What was your family like, childhood? How did you get into this world?
No, I grew up just outside of Chicago, so I lived, very Midwest life for most of my life. I was a team sports guy, went to school in Indiana, and after college was kind of like looking for the next thing, and I didn't know what that was going to be. And I went on, I was working a job that I didn't love, and in that spring I went on a ski trip to Telluride, Colorado. My first ski trip ever. I had never skied before. I was 23 years old. And went there with a couple of buddies, and I was just like, God, you guys, I think we need to move to a place like this, like to be around people like this and mountains like this. And then we were like, well, how about instead of finding a place like this, we just moved to this place? So I did, and it's classic kind of. It's like the plot of every ski romp comedy that you've ever seen. It's like Midwest guy moves to mountains, is going to stay for 6 months, stays for his all of his 20s. So that's what I did. Moved to Telluride, fell in love with it. Ended up just idolizing all of these grizzled silverback ski bums in Telluride, and all the guys and gals of the San Juan Mountains, and they just took me under their wing and taught me the way, and I just fell in love with the outdoors. And just since that's been the flag in the ground. 23 years old, there's most of the things in my life can be traced back to that moment, moving to Telluride in October of 2007.
Wow. Right before the season.
And it nuked that season too. It absolutely one of the all-time seasons ever. So I learned how to not just learned how to ski and kind of move in the mountains, but I also learned how to ski face deep powder.
And what a setting too! Holy cow! This isn't like you were used to some hills in the Midwest, and then went out there with some background. Well, tell us, because we're going to talk about this, but
sure.
What was the experience like learning at that age? Because that is late, that is older. Yeah. You're still young, obviously. At 23, like a 23-year-old to me now as a kid.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
At the time, I thought I was the smartest person I'd ever seen, and looking back, I was just like a overly caffeinated moron.
Did you have this going on?
It came, my mustache came to me, later in life, like much like the outdoor life. No, I was definitely, I just rubbed some like San Juan dirt on it and put some Miracle Grow and Vaseline on it and slept under a heat lamp, and poof, all of a sudden I had this lip caterpillar. A couple years later. I would say learning to ski at 23 was great because I was overly confident, and I tried a bunch of stuff, that I probably had no reason to actually try. But the good thing was that, I was exposed to a lot of people who were just like, hey, here, you live under my wing and I'm going to tell you what to do and how to do it. And the other thing too was that, I had some friends, the friends that I moved out to Telluride with had already had some ski experience. And I really wanted to hang out with my friends. So I couldn't like take it easy, I guess. And luckily being like, 23 and, athletic and large, I'm 6'5", I'm 250 pounds, I think of myself as an athlete. I was able to get away with bad form by just like strength. So slowly but surely, the form came. And honestly, like, I've devoted my life to skiing and since then, and it's my favorite thing to do. And yeah, I mean, it changed the course of my life, and that's why I love like celebrating beginnerhood, because I know personally like the power it has to like transform your life, especially the trajectory of your life. Without skiing, I'd be living outside of Chicago, working who knows what kind of job, doing, now that living in, my family still lives in Chicago. It's great. I love it there. It changed the course of my life. Skiing did, it's just been, all the better for it, I think.
Well, were you at all in the outdoors, scouts or camping or anything, family walks out in the woods even before this? Or was it, more,
I mean,
I don't know. What were you doing?
yeah, I was a team sports guy, like I played every sport when I was a little kid. Then in high school, I was a football and lacrosse player. I played lacrosse in college. We would like, play army in the woods of Wisconsin and Michigan, things like that. But I wanted to be that, I wanted to be an outdoor guy. I think, when I graduated high school, I think my parents gave me like a $200 gift card to like REI or something like that. And I got like a tent and a thing, and really what I was doing was like, I was just like, pitching the tent in like the backyard of the house I grew up in, like, but I loved it. Like I was still doing that, and, or trying to camp over, like where we would go to in like Wisconsin or something like that, but it was like trying to test the waters a bit. But yeah, really I was a team sports guy most of my life and enjoyed the outdoors, but the experience in kind of a Chicago, suburban setting wasn't like anything I was exposed to once I got out to the mountains. And once I got out to Colorado, I was like, oh, this is it. And really like, didn't look back. Once I got into the outdoor community, I was like, these are my people. This is my home.
We've heard a lot of stories on this show about people finding a medium of adventure that that's what they live for, but they found it accidentally. Yeah. And it was literally through an accident or through some sort of unavoidable course correction in life. Could this have been have you ever done the thought experiment of like, what if I went to Telluride in the summer? Or what if I had gone to Pacific Northwest? Or what if I had gone somewhere else and done something else? Could that, do you think you were kind of ripe to be captured by anything at that point? Not anything, but like the right thing. But it could have been a number of things.
It probably could have been a number of things. I think it was a desire to go out west. I was an English literature major in college, and I was wondering maybe I'll go get my MFA. And I started looking at places like out in Oregon. I had a desire to be outside and to be in the mountains somewhere. And I think, also at 23 years old, like, if you want to assert your manhood but continue to play cops and robbers, moving to a ski town is a great place to do that. And so, it definitely like hit the nail on the head. But, like I remember my first season there, once I had moved there, like when I first got a ski on edge, I remember that feeling. I can still feel it basically. And that energy went through my legs and exploded in my heart. And it captured me like that. And like it had me. And since then, it has continued to deliver that kind of mental, emotional, spiritual connection that I love so much, and then at 29, I moved back to the Midwest at 29. I was in St. Paul, Minnesota for a little over 2 years. I went there to get sober, actually. So I went to treatment, lived in a sober house for about 15 months, then moved out and moved in with a guy who was also on the recovery path. And but still, I was like in the outdoor community. I knew I was going to still ski. I knew I was going to go on jogs and things like that. And so, yeah, like I got, a pass, they had like a Minnesota state pass that you could get for like $200 or something like that. Then I got a season pass for $99 to Mount Bohemia. And I went up there and I skied powder, in Michigan. And it was just like, I was still like in the Midwest. I knew that I was a part of the outdoor community. And, the cool thing about Minnesota and a lot of the Midwest actually is that there is a great and wonderful and vibrant history of an outdoor community there, of outdoor adventure. Even though the Midwest is very maligned when it comes to, kind of the awe and wonder and beauty of the natural world. A lot of people just think it's like, they got nothing but casseroles and, butter out there. But really, there's some wonderful things out there. And St. Paul and that community in Minnesota, that greater outdoor community in Minnesota, really just like held on to me, and showed me the way as well. So I've been really lucky.
As I get older, and I this is a big theme on the show, is in adventures anywhere. And because I hate to see people feel like they're not a part of it if they're not in a big, in an outdoorsy town. And that's been something I've had to learn. I moved away from Denver about 3 years ago, which is obviously one of the hubs in Golden, and it's just like, you're in it. And it's been like, okay, now what? Well, going to some small obscure town no one's ever heard of, far away from the mountains. And it's everywhere. It really is. And what's cool, it's like I compare it to music for people. I'm like, is an orchestra music? Yeah. Yes. Orchestra is the mountains, just so much going on. It's big, but is a guy with an acoustic guitar singing really well, and it's beautiful. Is that music too? Of course it is. Like, it's so different, but it's all music, and it depends on what you need. It depends on what you're looking for in that moment. And that's interesting. Do you think a small ski town, and we don't have to dwell on this, but I do want to ask, because I work for a brewery in my day job, a non-alcoholic brewery, that is. It's we see this a lot. But did you think that a small ski town helped or hurt that aspect of your personality?
I think both, honestly. I think it helped. It helped me find recovery, and it also helped me kind of foster the disease of alcoholism and addiction as well. And I've written about this. I've talked about this on podcasts that I've produced. Like I was born an alcoholic and a drug addict, and it just took me a while to find alcohol and drugs. And once I did, that was the medicine. It made me feel okay for the first time ever in my life. And in a ski town where a dramatic lifestyle is like kind of the constant, is kind of the norm, and we live in a very celebratory place, so for me, I was like, this is great. I can continue the party from college, and nobody's going to bat an eye when I show up to co-ed softball on a weekend, with a box of beer and a bottle, and it's before noon. People are glad that I'm doing that because look at this place, look how wonderful it is. Let's celebrate. Let's, And but at the same time, when it wasn't just like, oh, this is Party Paddy and we're having a good time, when it was clear that I had the disease, that community, helped me get safe and helped me get to treatment. And then once I returned after, going to treatment and having some months of sobriety under my belt, they were so supportive. They even called, like when I was in, Minnesota, and told me that they love me, told me that they wanted me to be safe and have a happy, long life. And, were supportive of the help that I was getting in the path that I was on. So, I think that's true for like any community. Like I would have hit rock bottom in any town. It maybe timing would have been different, but that's mental health,
And there's an argument to be made, maybe going through that in a beautiful place like Telluride is a little better than going through it somewhere else. I mean, I don't know. Kind of like, money doesn't make you happy, but I'd rather cry in, a Mercedes than in a jalopy. You ever heard that?
Well, yeah, I have. And I think, the thing about the, mental health struggles is that, it's like the joke is always like, it doesn't, like alcoholism and drug addiction don't care if you went to Yale or jail. Like it's gonna, if you have the disease, it's gonna find you no matter where you are. And it definitely found me. And luckily, like the folks around me, got me safe, and that's another like flag in the ground moment for me in my life. I wouldn't be here without that.
Do you think there's a connection there with being vulnerable and trying new things? It sounds like you had to do that at 23 to just go skiing in a place where a lot of people are showing up, knowing what they're doing. And you got to basically say, all right, yeah, I'm a newbie. There's no way to get around it. I've know from mental health, it's like, holy cow, I've got to tell my whole family this for my own safety, or I've got to talk to my wife about this. And it's like very uncomfortable. But once you're comfortable with opening up, it's you realize, oh gosh, it didn't scare everybody away. Do you think that at all is a part of PaddyO Sucks At, this new really cool idea that you've been working on now for a couple years?
I have a love-hate relationship with being a beginner, because as a guy who grew up as a team sports guy, I was just like every new sport I tried that was like a ball sport, it was just kind of like, yeah, I'm good at it, kind of right away, I can figure it out. And when I got to the mountains, it's just like, that is not true. There's so many things where just like my size is like not helpful,
because it's not against others, it's against the mountain.
Gravity.
It's Mother Nature, gravity.
Yeah, like a guy my size, like doing endurance sports or like climbing or something like that. It's just like, oh yeah, you got such a great reach. And it's like, yeah, but once I get that handhold, I got to pull my big ass up, and that's friggin' hard. So I wish I could tell you that, yeah, like I arrived, like at the beginning of pre-production of PaddyO Sucks At with like a bunch of virtue of like, I know what it's so great to be vulnerable. And I don't think, I think that like when I was 23 and moved to Telluride, I had like this like wanton overconfidence. When I was 29 and went to rehab, I had the gift of desperation, and pretty much like, I was like, well, I can either do this thing or I can not be alive anymore. So I'm going to try that. And with PaddyO Sucks At, the thing I think that I really love about the show is that it makes me challenge the voice in my head that tells me not to try things because I will look stupid, and that just has kept me from doing new cool stuff for so long in my life. And that's anything from like, oh, just like going out to get a burger with your pals or something, or trying something new in a social situation. And it's definitely true of like, mountain biking, fly fishing, kayaking. Like these are things that like, I used to talk myself out of, because I was so scared of not looking like an expert or not being good. And is this going to shatter the way I think about myself? Or the big scary thing, the way I think that other people think about me, So it's been a great, opportunity for me to say, I'm going to put all that stuff aside. And even if I'm getting my ass handed to me, I'm going to try to figure out a way to laugh and have a good time. And it's been a blast. And I think that people are responding to that, which is really cool.
Are adventure sports, and are the things, especially that you're trying on the show, are those communities typically open to newcomers? Why or why not?
I think in the outdoor community, we have this kind of false belief that we were all born experts, that we came out of the womb shredding the gnar. And it's just not true. And I think we can definitely do a better job of welcoming newcomers in our community, because trying something new, especially as an adult, trying something new, whether it's, skiing or hiking or biking or, trail running or climbing, whatever it is, like putting up the courage and saying, yeah, I'm going to look stupid, or I'm going to totally have the beginner beatdown, like physically, mentally, and emotionally on this thing, going through that and doing it in a group of people, like that is probably the coolest thing that any of us can do. And so, yeah, I think that like we just need to celebrate that more.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. Are you looking to sell anything at all online? Well, I would advise you to look into Shopify. They are a global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. I use Shopify every day at my day job. It has been with us since our company was a tiny little team all the way up to where we are today, one of the biggest breweries in the country. Whether you're auctioning off autographed apparel, selling sleek skis, or selling non-alcoholic beer like we are at Athletic Brewing, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their personal POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify has got you covered. We manage a podcast, a blog, all that right there on our Shopify store. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. and has extensive help resources for whenever you're dealing with an obstacle. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ASP, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ASP for Adventure Sports Podcast now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/ASP. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
How do you feel about newcomers now as a skier? I mean, I think we've all been annoyed. It's almost like the classic someone who works in an industry supported by tourists, but they can't stand tourists. It's kind of
totally.
biting the hand that feeds you. I think
come to town and leave your wallet on Main Street and get out.
Yeah, like leave. Yeah, exactly. You see that in a ski town. What? Okay, you hate that. Yeah, I mean, we've all probably participated to a degree, but I don't know, it's the fear of looking stupid. And I've always thought, it's kind of intimidating to walk up to a group of new people that might not always be the most inviting and try something new. But what have you learned maybe about communities that might be a misconception about newcomers?
That's a good question. I mean, I think like with all the experts that I've been teamed up with for PaddyO Sucks At, everybody's been so great to spend 3 days with, and they've taught me. They've been very patient. Like especially Kai Leitner, dude. Climbing is such a friggin' hard sport. It is so terrifying. It's physically just so demanding. Just getting your feet in those god awful shoes is like exhausting and painful, right? And Kai Leitner is the guy's a champion. The guy is like a decorated professional climber, and he was so patient. And he was just like, get up there and try. Like, trying is the number one thing you can do in climbing. And I believe in you, even if you don't believe in yourself. And I did not. Like my first day, if you watch that episode, my first day, it was like, that is no BS. I was like, I do not think that we are going to be able to make an episode out of this, because I'm just like, I'm not getting it. I am not doing it. It's like so hard. And then you're just like maxed physically, like so quickly. And so what I think is that it's like, even I think a lot of times what people do is that they forget that they were a beginner. They forget that they had help learning the ropes, and whether that's, kind of the social cues of like how you're supposed to get in and out of a lift line, or what you're supposed to do when you show up to a crag or an eddy, the put in for your kayak or something. Like it's everything, not just, it's like the socialization around the sport as well as the actual sport. People forget that like someone showed them how to do it. And I think that we just need to remember that, and also realize, like, just from like a dollars and cents deal, like we need beginners in the outdoors to continue to have like this industry thriving. So you should probably just say, hey, like, thanks for coming to town and trying this new thing.
gravel has obviously blown up, gravel cycling and the races and whatnot. And early on, I remember talking to gravel riders. I'm like, why'd you switch from the road racing scene to gravel? They're like, because it's full of a-holes and people are so uninviting and there's all these egos. And it's not like investing in that next generation or open to newcomers. And they were, even as professionals, they were like, I'm just tired of it. I'm going my own way.
Yeah.
Gravel, you could argue, I'm not big into it, but I've heard it's almost suffered some of the same issues of just kind of being elitist, but it's just shooting yourself in the foot. And as an outdoor industry, we only thrive when there's people doing these things and trying these things.
Yeah. Agreed.
And what's also interesting with someone like you, this big personality, this person that you just feel is a fixture in the outdoor industry and the world. I feel like, Paddy O has tried everything. He's found skiing because that's the one he likes the best, but he's already done everything. I was surprised. I'm like, he actually hasn't done this. He hasn't climbed. He hasn't actually tried every sport. And I forget that a lot of us have only tried some things. We haven't done it all and given ourselves that chance. Do people find that surprising about you, or is that unique to me? Because I was like, you've never climbed before? That's wild.
I think some people do, right? Because again,
burro racing is understandable.
Yeah, that was an absolute blast. And you would think that the burros of burro racing have the worst feet in all of the outdoors, but no, it's actually climbers. I think that maybe as like a guy who's been in outdoor media for like a decade now, I think people, right, there's a level of assumption of expertise, I think, because I make my living off of my experiences outside. But I'm just like everybody else. It's like, I found my thing and I like my thing and I want to go do that thing as much as possible. So after a while, you stop. I feel like, maybe even, especially as you are getting, older, you're just like, no, why do I want to try something new? I got my thing. I want my smiles. I got, only this amount of time in my, in my schedule to allot for this adventure time, so I'm going to go ski or, for me, trail run or, go for a mountain bike ride. The cool thing about the show, though, is that I've put so many things on the shelf because either I'm like, I don't really know how to do this, or, like I'm scared of it, or, it just does not seem very fun to me, and to challenge those things and to try new stuff. So I think that's been really, really fun. For years, like I've wanted to try kayaking, but it scared the shit out of me. For years, since watching A River Runs Through It, like on TBS, like forever as a kid, I was like, I want to look like a handsome young Brad Pitt and try fly fishing. But I was like, I don't understand the technique here. Talk about a sport where like you can't muscle through it. The more muscle you use, the worse you get. And I was like, screw this thing, and or climbing even. Like I had tried climbing only maybe a couple times in my life out in Colorado. And I had ripped belayers off the ground when going for something, or so I was just like, this sport is just screw this. I'm scared the whole time and it's tough and I hate it, and then it's like you go out there and you do something that you've talked yourself out of for, a decade or something. And you get some level of success. Like when I got to that, like, that midway point on the third day, I was like so fired up. When I completed that climb on the third day challenge of that episode, I was so friggin' fired up. And that's something that I like, and that's a feeling like a level of like attaboy Paddy for myself, that I just hadn't had because I talked myself out of it. So I think that's a pretty fun deal. And, and hopefully, ultimately, I hope people watching the show will just say like, hey, you know what? Like if this big dumbass can do it, maybe I can.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Did you enjoy it?
Climbing or
the production of the show?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're already in.
Because I'm on the backside of this a lot. Is there's a lot more than meets the eye. How about all that aspect? Was that a fun experience? And I know you have experience, but
yeah. I mean, absolutely. I everything from pre-production to the actual shoot to post, writing the narration, voicing, the narration for it. I loved it. I love every bit about it, and also like working with the team over at Outside has been one of the most rewarding experiences in my career. I love everybody I work with. They're so wonderful and incredibly talented. And that's why we're already in pre-production for season 2.
That's
Getting
awesome.
fired up to start shooting that soon.
So you've got not an odd, but a unique assortment of.
Oh, you could call it odd.
Okay, you got
I am odd.
Freakishly weird assortment of sports in this first season. No, but what's things I didn't expect. I was like, all right, the first season they're going to tackle some of the big sports and adventure, but no, you kind of get niche pretty quick. Burro racing, orienteering, even kayaking, I would say. Heck, all of climbing's only the one that's like, to me, is one of those keystones. The rest are that second or third or way off on the fringe tier. What are some of those things that are you just never imagined you'd be trying this, but here we are. I know you can't probably spoil too much, but
for season 2
in the future, like what's something on your short list? It's like that at some point I've got to do this.
Oh, I think, snowboarding I've never tried. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it was just like, when I moved to Telluride, we skied. Like it was like me and, my 2 buddies who we moved out there together. And we skied with, snowboarders. It was 2007. Everybody was snowboarding. We were odd because we were skiers. And so, it's something that I've like always had great respect for. And I think like in part kind of taught me a different way to read, like skiing with those guys kind of taught me a different way to read the mountain, and ski kind of differently, a little more like surfy, wiggly, kind of like line choices. But I never tried it. Wanted to, never did, just because it was like, I just want to like keep skiing. So I think that's definitely going to be a fun one. Surfing. In the summers growing up in Chicago, I was a pool rat. I was just absolute pool rat. Cannonball, swim team, the whole deal. I loved surf culture. The first like outdoor documentary I ever bought was in college, and it was Step into Liquid. Do you remember that film? It was just.
No, and I grew up on the ocean.
It is. Go watch it. It is so fabulous. And it's all about like just the stoke of surfing all over the world, all over the country, even in the Midwest. They talk about the Great Lakes surfers, and I tried surfing once a couple years ago at a presser invitational out on the Oregon coast. And I was only in the water for like an hour, maybe at most. And I got my absolute ass handed to me so hard. I couldn't even pick up the board to carry it back to like where we were all hanging out on the beach because my arms were so dead. So that's going to be a really a fun one to try. And everything from season 1 was just like, this is either stuff that I've said, absolutely no, I'm not going to do this because I hate it and it's dumb and it's stupid, which really is, this challenges, the way I feel about myself. And I don't want to do it. Like, climbing and orienteering, I was like, I don't want to do these. And, the executive producer, my pal, Micah Abrams, was like, anytime I say like, I really don't know about that one, he's like, let's definitely do this then. And orienteering made me feel like I was doing long division in front of the class as like a little kid, It's just like, I feel so just like stupid right now. I hate it. That was the closest I got to like fully pulling the ripcord and saying like, just, I'm done. We're done here. Come get me. I'm sad and lonely and in the woods by myself.
And feel dumb. That's
super dumb.
It's like reading in front of the class and there's like a bunch of big words and you're just like, I'm going to feel like an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's moments that will always haunt me from stuff like that. Well, you're obviously going into this filming and saying, all right, here's kind of the barriers we're trying to break down. Here's kind of like the takeaways we want people to have. But was there any takeaway or learning that you found really surprising that you didn't think you were going to learn going into it? Like, wow, actually trying something new is more this than I expected, or this part of it really isn't, an aspect that I anticipated. So any unexpected kind of lessons that you walk away with?
Yeah, I think that the big thing, I knew that coming into this that we were going to make a thing that was funny, just because the way I go about life is through the lens of humor. I love poking fun at myself. I've got a buddy who always says, like, if you're not laughing at yourself, you're missing out on the world's funniest joke. So I knew we were going to make a funny thing. I didn't think or realize that it was going to be kind of like as like heartwarming for me personally on these like third day challenges, especially with something like kayaking, where I was just like, there were so many points where I was like, I'm pretty scared actually right now. And to do that, the expert that we got for that was my buddy Stan, and we go way back to my early days of first moving into Telluride, and he was the expert, and he led me down the rivers here in the Roaring Fork Valley. So I got to stay at home, and it was just a really cool new way to experience this valley that I've lived in for, since 2016. And that was really wonderful. And I think the big takeaways for me that were kind of surprising were, the fear of looking stupid is not reason enough to stop you from trying something new. Being ready at something is the goal. It means you're starting something. So I think that was a big one. And I also think that, the greatest measurement of our character is not the triumphant summit selfie moments, like where I'm, I have bested this thing, I just don't have that relationship with the outdoors. I think the greatest measurement of our character is when the shit hits the fan, when we're getting our asses completely handed to us. Like, can we in those moments still find joy and laughter and success? And that to me is the entire point of the show.
Is that what feedback you've heard at this point? Have you received a whole lot of, because the outdoor industry is full of very unfunny content, as we know. So, it's a lot of people taking themselves super serious, which gets exhausting. But you almost feel like, is there options for anything else? This is very different. Very different.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, which is great. We need more people helping break down that fear of trying something new.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And that was part of the deal of making this. That was why when we were first having meetings around this of like, hey, we have this idea, does this idea work? I think people on the production team, right, we're like, yeah, this is something that feels kind of new and fresh, and it will take the air out of this kind of self-seriousness that we're seeing, or kind of take the wind out of the sails of like, only the experts are worthy of like, the celebration. Huh. And it's just like not true. Like I think the things that people do, especially professional athletes, what they do outside is incredible. I love that stuff. I want to read about it. I want to investigate it for work myself. I want to talk to them about it. But I also think that like, people trying something new is just as worthy as someone, summiting Everest or climbing the Dawn Wall. Somebody going out and trying climbing for the first time when they're 40 years old. It's like, yes, that is badass. And people seem to be responding to that well. People have said some very nice things. Other members of the media, to just like the random fun folks on the internet are just saying like, hey, we need more of this, and I appreciate you doing this. Or just like the simple thing of like, man, I laughed a lot when I saw this. It's like, yes, Good. I think laughter is such a healing thing. I think it's so connective. I think it's the connective tissue in so much of our relationships. And if we can go out there and produce a season worth of episodes that make people laugh, make people feel good, and bring them joy, it's like, yes, we are hitting the nail on the head. That's what I want to do. Anything that I'm a part of creatively, I want to make, my mission statement is, I want to, create things that make people think, make people laugh, and make people feel like they belong. And I think that we do all three of those things on PaddyO Sucks At, for sure.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
I think the people, too, that we hear from who are experts, when you do get the chance to talk to them, or they're known for something, it is often surprising how recently they started that thing. I just interviewed somebody yesterday, did like this 1,000-mile paddleboard, and I'm like, oh my, it's their whole brand is built on this. They're like, I only started paddleboarding in 2019. And I'm like,
wow,
it's your whole life now. Like, it's what you're known for. You're like an icon. And I find that so frequently that people, like you said, you're not born out of the womb doing all these things, bombing down mountains or whatever your thing is.
Yeah.
It's so, not only is their scope limited, it's also recent a lot of times. So they were a beginner themselves not that long ago, but of course, no one's talking about them then. No one's paying attention to them then. It's almost, they seem like an overnight success or like they've been doing this their whole life when really they haven't. And so I don't think anyone means to necessarily. It just, and I'm so glad you're kind of showing, well, here's what it looks like to start. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, luckily I'm, like I said, like I'm okay with making fun of myself. And, if I can show up to something new and make myself laugh, or just like talk about the absurdity of the things that we love, I'm gonna have a good time. And if I feel like if I'm laughing while we're making something, like there's a pretty good shot that other people are gonna laugh along the way too. I just think like the stuff that we love is hilarious. Like,
tell us something that happened that didn't make the cut of the show, because on the a lot gets left at the editing floor. And any situation or story you got?
There's probably like too many things, and like for like social media promotion, the fine folks at Outside have poured over literal hours, days worth of footage, and they've put together some like outtakes, and there's some stuff in there that I say that I'm just like, I don't even remember saying that, like because it's just like, they're like, all right, Paddy, you're mic'd up and the cameras are rolling, and go, just do your thing. And my thing is typically just to like observational humor, just to like notice things that are odd. I ask a lot of like why questions in my life in general, or why is that the way, or how come, so I don't know, like in burro racing, day one, I read the feed bag and it was like, oh, feeding instruction for lactating mares. And I just thought the phrase lactating mares was so funny,
Great
like
band name.
And and they ended up actually making a cut of this and putting it as like an outtake reel on Outside Watch, where I ask a question where I'm like, what's the difference? I honestly didn't know this. I was like, what's the difference between a donkey, a burro, and all like the other like names of like donkey, and ass, like what is there a different? And I just said, like, isn't a donkey just a horse that didn't go to college? And it just was like, it just like popped in my weird brain. I think like my buddy Stan has a ton of different kayaks, right? So he like got a squirt boat out, and a squirt boat is a super thin fiberglass kayak that you like can barely squeeze yourself into. And what you're doing is playing with the current under the water. So there's a thing in squirt boating called the mystery move, where you're sinking below the surface of the water and you're like dancing within the current. And that is the thing in squirt boating that you want to do. But the thing about squirt boating is that like I couldn't even like fit my hand inside of the squirt boat. Like it's just not built for a guy like my size. A lot of the sports that we do, I'm just like, I am too big to play. Like I am too large for these funny like little things. Yeah, like even just like putting on a climbing harness, like what got cut probably because it was so inappropriate, were like how many times I referenced like my mommy and daddy button getting like smashed, or front wedgie.
Yeah,
and
probably visually it's a lot too,
it
on
is
camera.
inappropriate. That's for patio after dark.
Okay. Right, that's the subscribers only.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's just like goofball stuff like that. And I honestly, I'm like, I can't believe that the wonderful folks behind the curtain editing this show pour over all of these things. And are just like, have to deal just with like the absolute weirdness that comes out of my mouth. And
it's like, I don't even remember saying this stuff. And y'all have to sit there and analyze the heck out of it, put it all together.
Yes.
What's the team like? We can cut some of this, but like, what's the size of the team capturing? Is there a couple people, a handful?
Well, we have what we have typically is like we need it to be kind of light and run and gun a bit. So we'll have like a site producer, during the shoot. We'll have an A camera, we'll have a B camera, we'll have the expert, and then sometimes we'll have somebody who is also like out there, flying a drone or making sure the GoPros are going on.
B-roll and all that.
And then we also have a sound engineer as well with us. So we try to keep it to like 5 to 7. Because a lot of times, like we're moving, like what you don't see, like for the burro racing is like those guys had to get up in front of me, like with enough time to set up. So they had like electric mountain bikes. Or like, Kirk who's like runs the A camera was like running alongside of me for a lot of it. Luckily he's also a runner. But just figuring out like stuff like that, or like, hey, how are we going to mic Paddy and Stan when they flip upside down in a kayak? You know what I mean? Like figuring out that kind of stuff, like is part of the fun of making it. It's just like, Jesse, who was our sound guy, cut the pinky off of a latex glove of these like to put it on the like lav mic. And like we had like these like waterproof packs for the battery and the receiver. It was just like, it was outrageous how they figured out how to do it all
on the fly.
But it's cool.
I'm sure.
On the fly too. Yeah.
Dang, that's awesome. Well, what do you hope this becomes? You hope this, just keep producing seasons of all these different things. You're not going to run out of things to try, like we know that. But
I hope not. Yeah. I mean, I hope we continue to make this. I hope, it's, PaddyO Sucks At being 80 years old and trying to run the Boston Marathon.
It could just PaddyO Sucks At life. Yeah. Just life. Let's try paying taxes. Yeah. Let's do taxes.
Totally. You want to see a real freak out. Yeah. Come to my house during tax
dude
season.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah. I hope that we continue to make the show forever and ever and ever. Amen. I hope, because here's the deal is that like what it has done is it's really inspired me to continue to try new things and continue to challenge myself, both in my personal and professional life, of trying new sports or just trying new stuff creatively. I'm going to continue to be an adult beginner for the rest of my life. And I will continue to celebrate that. And hopefully, people will want to come along on that journey with me. I hope they do. And really, I hope that anything that I create, especially with PaddyO Sucks At, I hope people are getting a good giggle out of it. And I hope it makes them feel, like warm, fresh baked cookies in their heart. And I hope they think a little bit. And I hope that they go out and try something new themselves. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Last question is,
Sure.
The importance of trying new things in age is, like I said before, a lot of the folks we talk on this show end up becoming known for something they did from a sport they were forced to try because of an injury or just circumstances or where they were, literally in the world. They couldn't ski anymore or whatever it is. So they tried a new thing. Has a sport or anything you've tried to this point, you feel like has the potential to capture you like skiing did when you were 23 back in Telluride? Like it was the right place, right time. Yeah. Sure. And it's just like, oh my God, this is doing something for me. Do you think that one of these things has the potential if it hasn't already?
Well, I've come back home and started fly fishing on my own and with my wife. And the whole point really of of the fly fishing episode was to like get kind of a little bit better or a little bit okay so I could go home and hang out with my wife, who is just one of the most talented athletes I know, is good at literally everything that she does and is just an absolute ace with a fly rod. And we've gone out together prior to me filming PaddyO Sucks At fly fishing. And it's kind of hard when she's really great and I'm getting stuck in the bushes behind me, so that has been really wonderful. And I am in the market for a kayak. I really loved kayaking. It was great to get back on the river. I was a river rat in the summers in Telluride when I was, kind of in the grad school of ski bummery. I had to spend my summers doing something, and I was a total river rat rafter. But since have kind of hung that up a bit to be more of like a trail runner and a mountain biker. So getting back on the river has been wonderful. And at the end of that experience of filming that episode, I was like, I think I want to buy a kayak. Like I really love this. This is great. And Stan and I have some ideas for going back to some rivers that he and I have been on way, way back in the day. But this time doing it in a kayak. So I think that would be really cool. So yeah, I mean, that's a cool thing, right? It's like, I've lived out west since I was 23. I love the outdoor community. I feel like an active member of the outdoor community. I love it so hard. And now I have all these new things that I get to do. It's so cool. Yeah.
Well, Paddy, I appreciate you coming on. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And by the way, what else do you do? There's a lot that you do.
Oh, I do a lot. I tend to think of myself as a Swiss Army knife of creativity. Right. So
I like it.
I say that I'm a professional word nerd and chit chatter. So what that means is that I'm a writer and multimedia producer. I work, I write stories for magazines and for .coms. I write films. I do voiceover work for brands and films. I work in front of the camera. I work behind the camera. I've produced, like 100 bajillion podcasts. I think now is
official count. The official count.
Yeah, the official count is 100 bajillion. And I do, on stage event work. I mean, I do it all because I kind of have, in terms of like my brain and what I need to do for it. Like, it's just a bunch of monkeys up there. So luckily, I get excited about something and story wise, creatively wise, and I just find a home for it, whether it's something that's going to be, watched, listened to, or read. So I do all those things.
We'll point people to Outside Watch,
yes,
to watch PaddyO Sucks At and your socials and all that. And if there's anything else, we'll point them there. But dude, thank you. This was great.
Yeah, Mason, thanks so much for having me on. This has been an awesome conversation.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to the show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.